Good afternoon. What a lovely show of support. I'm Ed Taylor, Dean and Vice Provost of Undergraduate Academic Affairs, and I've been asked to convene us for a moment. I was not asked to give a formal introduction of our Provost, but I can't resist saying a couple of things. For those of us who've been at this university for a while, we have known Anna-Marie Cauce as a clinician, as a psychologist. We've known her as a teacher, in fact, one of the very best teachers this university has, a Distinguished Teaching Award winner. We've known her as a department chair. We've known her as a fighter for good, for freedom and justice on this campus. We've known her as an executive vice provost and a dean of arts and sciences. And now we know her as the provost. And I don't know if we're supposed to say this as of now, but we will soon, as of a month, know her as interim president. And if you follow Facebook at all, here's what you know about her: that she wakes up in the morning thinking about the University of Washington. She goes to sleep at night thinking about the University of Washington. And no one loves this place, and no one works harder in this place than Anna-Marie Cauce. So welcome to the Provost Town Hall, and here is Anna-Marie Cauce.
Is this your way of saying you don't really want to hear from me? Now, thank you so much, Ed, and thank you all for coming out here. It's a lovely day outside. I know that you all have other things to do, and so I really appreciate your spending some time with me here today. And I also want to thank those of you that might be tuning in from your offices or from Bothell and Tacoma. I actually can talk to a class this size without a mic, but this is for you. And this is the Provost Town Hall, and I'm still Provost. But today, I'll also be speaking for next week's president. In all seriousness, though, I'm really deeply honored and humbled to be in this position, and I very much appreciate the faith and confidence that the regents have shown in me. We have a few regents in our audience today: Joanne Harrell, Constance Rice, Christy Blake, and Marnie Brown, our student regent. And I can tell you that I can't think of a more hard-working group than our regents, coming out to events like this, going out and meeting with our students on all three campuses, tirelessly advocating for all of us in Olympia and in their friendship and business centers. So thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for the confidence that you've shown in me. I also want to thank all the students, faculty, and staff, and so many friends from the university who've sent supportive messages. With all the people that are watching my back, I know I can't fail. What I'm going to do today, and I'll probably start speaking without tripping all over myself in a few minutes. I actually am really nervous. So I'm going to speak for about 20 minutes or so, then open things up for questions, including a few that were submitted in advance. But the first thing I want to do is acknowledge Jerry Baldesty and thank him for agreeing to serve as interim provost and executive vice president. As I was contemplating this decision, I talked to students in ASUW, GPSS, PACS. I talked to deans and to our faculty senate leadership. And there really was very clear agreement that Jerry is a long-standing university leader of tremendous integrity, smarts, and proven effectiveness. And a key deciding factor for me was that Jerry is the kind of person that always seeks input from those who are most affected by the decisions that he's going to make. I found that in the position of provost, inclusion and responsiveness are really essential, and those are core strengths that Jerry brings. Jerry and I also have a terrific established working relationship that's really going to help. He's been involved in practically all the initiatives coming out of the president and provost's office, so he can just slide into the position without skipping a beat. For those of you that don't know, Jerry is a native Washingtonian. He was born in Spokane, and he holds a bachelor's degree and a PhD from the best public university in the world, the University of Washington. Now, together, this is almost a little embarrassing, but together we've spent about 70 years at the University of Washington. So our positions may be interim, but there's nothing interim about the love, loyalty, and commitment we have to this university, to this community, or to the citizens of this state. So I want to open my comments today by sharing my thoughts about our momentum and progress as a university during this period of transition. But I think of it less as a period of transition than really a launching point. Far from slowing down and waiting, we're going to hasten our pace and accelerate the great work that we're doing together. Because I think this is a time of real urgency. There's an urgency in this moment. All our campuses are thriving, and our contributions to the region and the world have really never been greater. And I believe in the theme of boundlessness. It captures so many things about the university that are important to me. That sense of limitless possibilities for our students, for the research and scholarship of our faculty, and for our communities, both local and global. Boundless also implies a lack of boundaries, something that became very concrete to me. This Saturday, I was part of the mayor's U District Find It, Fix It walk on the Ave. And as I was walking through, I talked to small business owners, senior citizens, students and their neighbors, a priest who just relocated, and social service providers. All were united in their desire to make the U District safe and economically vibrant, to help it prosper, but also to keep it affordable and, yes, funky too. So you may remember that when I talked to you as I was about to become provost, I described myself as a border crosser. Now, literally, I immigrated from another country into the US, but also border crossing in terms of my scholarship, which is very interdisciplinary, and also the intertwining of my various identity statuses. I love the idea of being boundless. And at this moment in time, in this place, we truly have boundless momentum. Look outside. It's springtime in the Puget Sound. We're a region that is a destination for the most innovative and creative people in the world. Seattle is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, and the Puget Sound is one of the most vibrant regions. At one point, in fact, when I first was coming out here, I thought that being on this extreme West Coast was kind of remote. But right now, it places us smack dab in the middle of the world. We are in the right place. What happens here reverberates across the Sound, the state, and around the world. We also have an amazing faculty that's very busy and working very hard to seek solutions to the world's greatest challenges. And that, in fact, leads the world through their scholarship, research, and their teaching. We all know that this is a research colossus. Almost $1.5 billion in funded research. First amongst public universities, second amongst all universities. But sometimes we don't talk enough about the fact that we're also an innovation hub for teaching. We've been a real pioneer in online learning. We offer some of the most watched MOOCs in the world. And our completion degree in early childhood education, that's been around for just a little over a year, has already been ranked #2 in the country among online education programs by the Students Before Profits organization. And our work on making classrooms interactive has been published in Science, and it's making an impact across the world. Just as exciting is the many ways in which our teaching and research are intertwined. It's really not teaching and research. We really put them together, like when our students, grads and undergrads, stand or sit shoulder to shoulder with us in our labs, in our studios, or at Startup Hall. Last year, 87% of the patents coming out of the UW had student involvement. So even our commercialization is teaching. We don't, remember, boundless, no boundaries. And our students, I mean, they are just amazing. They come from all walks of life and circumstances, and they believe that anything is possible, whether they're in engineering or English, computer science, or political science. They're preparing for careers that will be reinvented again and again. Because in this day and age, career is not a destination. It really is a journey. Now, many of you know that I teach a freshman seminar. Or rather, I really should say co-teach, because I've got a terrific undergrad TA, Chelsea Ayers, not related to Regent Ayers, that I really couldn't do it without. Now, I don't do it because it's good for them, although I hope it is. I do it because it's critical for me, not only because it reminds me of why I'm here, but because I learn so much from my interactions with students, and it makes me a better and more responsive leader. Sometimes too much in the background, it's our staff that makes all of this possible, from those who recruit our students, raise money, and serve patients, to those who make our campus environment spectacular, our laboratories clean and safe, who keep our technology working, and who ensure that our processes and procedures are effective. Again, sometimes they're a little bit in the background, but they make all the work that our students and faculty do possible. We also have a set of priorities and initiatives, and they were developed together with university leadership, faculty, staff, and students. And they have considerable momentum behind them. And we also have a framework, our Sustainable Academic Business Plan, and it guides us in how we enact those priorities and initiatives. One of the things that I really appreciated about President Young was that he led through collaboration. The priorities that we identified were developed collaboratively, with my involvement for sure, but with the involvement of many of you in the audience and probably at home too. So I want to talk about two of these before opening things up for questions. One that you probably heard a bit about is the innovation agenda. And I'm going to be talking about it just a little bit differently. I'm going to be talking about the innovation imperative. Because it's not just a list of to-dos that we're working on, like doubling the size of the computer science department and a new building that will allow us to do that. But it's about also broadening the reach of commotion, which Vikram Jandala, the new Vice President of Innovation, is really working on. But it's not just those specific things. These certainly are top priorities, and I'm not backing down on them for a second. But what I mean by the innovation imperative is much more than that. It's a spirit of creativity and openness to breaking with convention and doing things a little or a lot differently. It's that sense of urgency that now is the time. And it's that sense of creativity and urgency that's not just about a few things at this university. We have to bring that energy to everything that we do here. You're not going to see significant change in the priorities of recent years because I'm stepping in as interim president. But what you'll see is you'll see me talking about them in my own way, in my own voice, informed by the context of my history and interactions with this community over the decades. One of the first meetings I had after this transition was announced was with a key community partner and donor, and together with our VP of Innovation, we talked about ways to put our work on commercialization and entrepreneurship on steroids. Startup Hall is just the beginning. But when I talk about innovation, I'll also be talking about the dance troupe Noche Flamenca, which came to the UW World Series to engage in a 6-week creative development residency, which resulted in the world premiere of Antígona, a flamenco opera based on Sophocles' Antigone. And it went from here, its world premiere, to New York City. Or I might mention the School of Social Work's Partners for Our Children, which is a first-of-its-kind collaboration with the Washington State Department of Social and Health Services. It focuses on new thinking resources and expertise as it informs our state's child welfare system. That's idea to impact too. The innovation imperative also includes our basic or inquiry-based research. Okay, at the risk of sounding just a little woo-woo, I have to say that I believe not only with all my heart and soul, but also history and experience has proven time and again that the human imagination, unfettered, takes us to important places, even if we don't know where those places are going to be. I often use as an example laser technology. Much of the theory behind it was developed before 1920, but the first working laser wasn't developed until 1960. And even then, some people derided it as a solution looking for a problem. It had no clear use. Yet today, laser technology has insinuated its way into our lives in ways that are both trivial and sublime. Barcode scanners to laser printers to laser surgery. That's idea to impact. It's just a different time frame. Now, what I really, really want to do is not to be prescriptive about how our research will have impact. Some of our faculty members and students approach it with a very specific purpose, and that's great. But what I really want to do is create the conditions, or as Vikram says, the ecosystem, in which idea to impact won't take 40 years, and it won't happen by serendipity or happenstance. That's the urgency of the innovation imperative. It means creating spaces and places where engineers and physicists and artists and MDs and philosophers and computer science, business and law and policy faculty and students engage and converse, because it's at these crossroads that are characterized by diversity that the action takes place. Border crossings, boundlessness. I also remain completely committed to enriching and broadening the Husky student experience, which we've been talking so much about in the last 3 years. I've always thought about myself as a teacher first, but I also know that our students, graduates, and undergraduates learn as much outside the classroom as they do inside of it. It's another way in which we are boundless. We think of the Husky experience as a degree and more. By more, we mean access to high-impact experiences, such as studying abroad, job skills and internships, participation in faculty research projects. We want all our students to leave here with a broader cultural understanding, career skills and strategies, leadership skills, and the habits of heart and mind that inform lifelong learning and deep community and civic engagement. It's about a degree, but it's about a lot more. The fact that just last week we learned that once again we were #1 in the number of students placed in the Peace Corps, and we were one of the top 10 schools with faculty, students, and alum who got Fulbright scholarships really suggest that we're not just talking, we walk the walk. And I could go on and on. There really is so much that I love about this place, so much for all of us to be proud of. But I'll just suffice it to say that my vision and initiatives will not be 90 degrees, 180 degrees from what we've been doing in the last 3 years. I was involved in shaping them, and I'll continue to shape them. But I'll be talking about them in my own way and in my own voice. To support this work, though, means that the next few months I'm going to be, kind of a little bit of tunnel vision, focusing first on success in Olympia. 2 buildings, computer science and life science buildings, are at the very top of my and our students' list for this session. We have other needs in the health sciences in Tacoma and Bothell, but these have a special urgency right now for the education of our students and for the welfare of the state. On the operating budget, we'll be working with our legislature to ensure that we can keep our university affordable for students and their families, but also ensuring that we can provide them with the excellence that they deserve and that they've come to expect, that UW quality education that made Jerry capable of just stepping in to this position. Now, freezing or lowering tuition would be terrific. I'd love to see that happen. But without a concomitant investment in us, it is still a cut to students. When faculty and courses are cut, it can mean a student doesn't graduate on time. If they spend an extra quarter here or a year here, that costs a lot more than a modest tuition increase. But just as importantly, a cut to excellence in coursework, research, and the extracurriculars also hurts our students, both in the quality of their experience today and in the value of their degree tomorrow and throughout their future. Simply cutting tuition is not holding our students harmless. And it not just hurts our students, it in turn hurts all of us in the state. With almost 80% of our students staying in state, they're our future teachers, our future social service providers, engineers, government officials. They're the CEOs of businesses large and small. When we shortchange our students, we shortchange the future for all of us, and we fail to live up to the public mission and the first principles of this university. We can't let that happen. In this legislative session, I'll also be focusing on the best possible health care for all of Washington. That means ensuring that the innovative and the very best of its kind UW medical education in Spokane through the WWAMI program stays strong and healthy, and that it expands so we can better meet the needs for doctors in rural areas. When we expand WWAMI, we can put new and more doctors on the ground right away, not in 10 years, not in 20 years, but right away. And that is really important. In addition to the work in Olympia, and like I say, I will be really focused on that because it's important to us, I'll be working to engage our philanthropic partners in support of our vision. In other words, I'll be friend-raising and fundraising. We have the greatest community partners in the world. Last year, our donors contributed more in private funding than any other public university in the world, almost $500 million. That's what you call friends. Just tonight, I'll be joining the leaders of our next campaign for dinner right after town hall to talk about the university's future and how they can help us support it. With the economy of our region bouncing back, there's an incredible opportunity for this university to do something really powerful for our students and the world. We will seize this moment. No slowing down here. Acceleration plus momentum. Our university has galvanized around a concept, the notion of being boundless. It's a lot more than just a tagline. It's our way of describing what the university means to our students, our state, and the world. Our work isn't about teaching or research, business or nonprofits, inside the academy or outside, local or global, Eastern or Western Washington. It's about all of this, together, not in opposition to each other. Now, when I talked to Student Senate last week, they asked me pretty directly, so what's new now? Well, aside from the fact that Jerry's wearing a tie and I'm wearing lipstick, we take our job seriously. Proof. Absolutely no question. But seriously, what I believe is that the ability to get things done within and across any complex organization, and this university is exactly that, has to do with trust and relationships. It takes years to develop them, and that's what I bring to the table. So let's get on with it. Momentum plus acceleration. Together we will. Thank you. Questions? There's mics on both sides, so. Hi.
Do I get to go first?
You get to go first.
I'm Amy Hagopian in Public Health, and I serve as Secretary of the American Association of University Professors chapter here. This is a personal question based on my experience in my unit, School of Public Health. I think all of us have now had a few years of experience with ABB and our move into that method of managing our finances in an era of scarcity. And no matter what we think of the scarcity, which is mostly negative, people are responding to the incentives that ABB set up. And I think we're starting to see that some of those responses aren't entirely like we might have wanted them to be. I think the collaboration between departments is diminished. I think graduate education is undermined. And I wonder if we might have some re-looking at some of the ABB incentives and how they've aligned and what they've created and how we might alter some of that.
Well, absolutely. When ABB started, we thought of it as having some levers. And we've made some changes over time. For example, I think at one point the formula for how a tuition was divided up between the unit that taught and the unit that the student was in has changed at least once. So we have a committee that looks at ABB, and every year we have conversations about how do we tweak those levers. My sense is it's been working better in some colleges than in others. And that even the collaboration has been working better in some places than others. What we will be doing, and like I say, we will be doing this, we do this every year, is go back, have conversations about what's working and what isn't. If it's not working for interdisciplinarity, that's a big problem because we know that it's there. We're really going to solve the problems of the future. I have heard from some graduate students that they feel that they're a little bit shortchanged by ABB. And I do think that it's very important to realize that in terms of tuition dollars, undergraduates bring in a really huge amount of that. And I think that part of the problem really is scarcity. I mean, we are doing actually a really good job. We can document that we're doing a really good job of teaching intro biology in a class of 800 students. But we can't stretch any further. And so some of the problems that you're talking about really are scarcity. And the way to address that is by, everyone here, write a letter to your legislator. Have your neighbors write a letter to your legislature. Have your parents write a letter. They say they never hear from us. So that's part of it, but then we also have the inside baseball part. And we are looking at that, and we'll continue to look at that. So thank you. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Paula Wakazik. I'm a maintenance plumber here in FMC, and I'm also the president of Local 1488, which represents 3,000 members here on campus in Harborview and UwWMC. I basically want to know how you plan to maintain these state buildings. We've got a lot of vacancies in the trades and the custodians. These buildings are deteriorating, and I want to give one example. In the last 3 weeks, Skagit Lane has been nothing but a series of leaks. This morning I was called over to communication. We're tearing apart a restroom there. Also this morning, Galwin we're tearing apart. Miller had another leak. Last month, Miller had 3 leaks. And for most of you may think, well, geez, I just have to stay out of the way of the water or the other stuff. But the problem is, when we have to go in and fix these rooms, these classes are being canceled and they're having to move them around other places. You know, it's just, you know, these buildings are deteriorating, and I'd like to know how you plan on keeping them going.
Some of you may remember when I became provost, I talked about myself as the provost of socks and underwear. And what I meant by that was that I was going to be focusing in large part on issues around infrastructure, because we do tend to like the new and shiny things. And the issue of deferred maintenance is a big one, and it's something that we really are looking at very carefully. We do have, I can tell you that in terms of our capital budget, our first priority is always the maintenance budget before we're talking about new buildings. Again, we can play around the edges here. The truth is we just don't have enough money. And so the first and most important thing that we can all do is join hands and talk to our state about the need. And I know that we're having some conversations about workload issues, et cetera, and I am looking at that.
Hi, my name is Samantha Simon, and I'm a PhD student in the English department, and I have some questions concerning university sexual assault policies. In particular, I'm wondering what you plan to do to reform the current policies in place. And in terms of this, I'm thinking about the ways that the university defines consent in sexual assault cases it reviews on campus, and also about the communication between decision makers in these cases and both the victim and accused students.
Yeah, I hope you got my email and you know, saying that we might want to get together and talk about some of the specifics that you brought up of some cases.
I emailed your assistant to do that. So.
Okay, great, good,
But
good.
in general.
Because it is, I want to make 100% clear that this university cares deeply, that I care deeply about sexual assault between our students, whether it's on this campus or not. This has been an issue that there's much more growing awareness of it in the country at large, but it becomes a particular issue, and we have a special responsibility because we are a place where students don't just play and work, but they live here. And so we really have a special obligation to our students for that reason, and because of I'm an adolescent psychologist, and there's some special aspects about the developmental stages that our students are in. We have been at the forefront on a number of these things. For example, before there was the mandate from the federal government we had to relook at our policies. The president charged a task force that was headed up by Ellen Taylor to look at all our policies. We did end up, I did this while I was in the provost office, putting more money and hiring some new people to make sure that particularly we were in a good position to support victims when they came in and they got the support they needed to do the reporting that made sense. I can't answer how we go about the different steps. Really does vary from case to case, how we find out, the nature of the sexual assault, et cetera. But what I can tell you is we're really committed to getting it right. Right now the federal government is talking about mandating universities to do climate surveys. We've been doing it on our own for 4 years. So we're ahead of the curve, we're going to stay ahead of the curve, and we'll be paying very serious attention to this question. We owe it to our students.
Hello, President Cauce. My name's Doug Nielsen. I used to work in the custodial department here. A few years back, I retired, but I still know people in the department.
And I'm moving around just because I can't see your face because of the light.
Okay. Anyway, a friend has been put on paid administrative leave there. I brought it up at the last meeting with the President Young, and it was 10 weeks. Now it's 12. And it just seems to me like an injustice because for one thing, the taxpayers are paying for this, and I just can't understand how an investigation has to go on for 12 weeks when it's pretty much known that the individual put some information in his personal newsletter about some incidents in his area. And he tried to be as accurate as he could, and but apparently it offended, what was said was offended the supervisors. And so, I noticed that on, I think it was your blog, you said that you took justice seriously.
Yes,
I think the way the intimidation that's been brought down on the custodians is really bad when you consider the level of vacancies, like about 50 vacancies have been created since 2008. And so I think, these are the, from the top of the university, it looks a lot different than it looks from the bottom. And I think that, for people who are rushing around trying to get work done already overloaded, and to see one of their coworkers, put out to pasture for 12 weeks, and they have to then carry his load, it just doesn't look good. So I'll stop.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to express my appreciation to all the staff at this university and the work that you do to make everything possible. As I said earlier, I think that sometimes our staff works in the background, but without your work, we wouldn't be able to do our work, so thank you. I actually just got an email about this yesterday, and as I understand it, your colleague is getting a letter about this almost as we speak, if not by tomorrow. So he will be getting a response, and so thank you.
Hi there, I'm Garrett Strain. I'm a student in the Evans School of Public Affairs. It's good to see you, Anna Marie. So recently, the UW State Auditor's Office just released a 120-page report on the UW, and one of the findings of that report is that the UW has, the academic units of the University of Washington have $185.5 million in carryover funds. Mm-hmm. And if we just take a look at the College of Arts and Sciences, there's $31.3 million in carryover funds. Now, I think we all agree that the state needs to do more to fund higher education, but given that this is a year when the university is going to be deciding what to do with these carryover funds, are you going to be prioritizing investing those funds in things like freezing tuition for all categories, including graduate tuition, and filling some of these vacancies that are causing the custodians to be overworked and the buildings to be deteriorating? Yeah,
let me address that. First, let me say that in terms of some of these so-called carryovers and reserves, particularly the academic units, we will be better at making sure that those are labeled much more clearly for what they're being used. For example, you'll see larger carryovers, particularly in arts and sciences, the science piece, and in engineering, and that's partly how they save up for startup packages. I think the average size of a startup package in engineering is now about $600,000. In some areas, like in physics, they're sometimes over $1 million. And so particularly at this point, where we're beginning to see some movement, some retirings, and some new hires, some of that carryover is being used for some express purposes. But let me also talk about these reserves more generally. To put things in perspective, we are a $6 billion a year operation. That is a mind-boggling amount. Now, in order to, you all know that you're expected to keep some money in reserves in your bank account. As mostly we're told that we should keep about a year of liquid cash on reserve. And it's important that we keep reserves because it relates to our bond ratings. Our bond ratings are important to you, you may not know it, because it sets the rate at which we can borrow. And that affects you. For example, this year, our students aren't going to be seeing an increase in housing costs because the cost of borrowing went down. So keeping our bond rating high is actually important to us. And that requires having cash on hand. Again, we're a huge campus. We have 3 hospitals, South Lake Union. We actually even own our own power plant. To put the size of our, if you talk about it in dollars, like I say, I think it seems mind-boggling. Sometimes when I'm looking at spreadsheets, I just take out the last, 3 numbers, in some cases 6 numbers, because, it's the only way I can kind of wrap my head around it. One way to look at it is the average reserves on hand, so liquid cash on hand at public universities, so our peers, is usually about enough to get through 3/4 of the year. At the University of Washington, our reserves won't even get us through half a year. So our reserves are well within the range of our peers. In fact, they're on the low side. So I am at my budget meetings having conversations with deans, with administrative units about what are the reserves for, how do we make it clear what they're for, because it's not only important to you, it's important for how we speak to Olympia. But the size of our reserves are actually not high for a public university. Thank you for the question, and thank you for giving me a chance
Just
to
as a
say
quick
that.
follow-up to that.
Sure.
One of the 7 things, because the audit does mention that startup costs is one of the things that the carryover funds go towards. But one of the 7 things that the audit report says the carryover funds go to is deferred maintenance, which is what you've talked
Yes.
about, and which is a major issue for custodians on campus. So I just don't see, given that there's $185.5 million, and that's one of the categories that's explicitly carved out, why you can't put some of that money into
Because
filling
we're a
some of these
$6 billion
vacancies.
operation with 3 hospitals, 3 campuses, South Lake Union, our own power plant, we are huge. That amount, I remember when I saw the size of the carryover funds for the School of Medicine, and it's close to 80 million. That's enough for them to run their operations for 15 days. Your mom would be ashamed of you if you only had enough money to get you through 15 days in your cash.
Well, thanks to the
checking
tuition
account.
rates, that's kind of the case.
Touche. Okay.
Hi, my name is Jessica Ramirez. I'm an undergrad senior here at the University of Washington studying American Ethnic Studies, and I'm going to read you my question.
Okay.
I'm here representing students for farm workers. An hour north here in the Skagit Valley, farm workers organized as Familias Unidas por la Justicia and are boycotting the dire conditions of berry picking at the farm they work for, Sakuma Brothers Farms. The farm sells their berries to larger labels such as Haagen-Dazs and Driscoll. The UW sells these brands here at the university. As a student who works alongside remarkable UW students, who themselves are migrant farm workers at times and are the sons and daughters of migrant farm workers at younger ages, what commitment can you make to support the farm workers in the Skagit Valley? Because there are definitely other berry options for HFS to choose from.
Okay, thank you. This is actually the first time I've heard about that specific issue, but I did get a question from Chris Jones. Actually, I got 4 questions from him, but one of them asked about the whole issue of student activism. And I think that student activism has played a very positive role in this university. We have actually changed your work, not only here, but across the country, has really had a material influence on, for example, companies like Nike and Adidas in terms of the working conditions for workers. So, student activism has really played a very positive role. What we try and do is work with our students to see if how can we work together productively. For example, at the next Board of Regents meeting, which is in Bothell, we will have the students who have been arguing for divestment and fossil fuels, particularly divestment and coal. They will be doing a presentation. They will have time in front of the Boards of Regents to do a presentation. And before then, they've been working very close with our Finance and Facilities Department to really look at sustainability more generally at this university. So shoot me an email. I'll try and see who are the right people for you to meet with. I can't always say that we come to exactly the same point, but I think we've done some very productive work together, and I'd like that to continue. So thank you. It sounds like this is the hot spot. So
Hi, President Cauce. This is
that sounds kind of nice,
Yeah. This is a copy of the October 2014 University of Washington Salary Stratification Report. And of the roughly 28,000 UW employees, there are 1,771 individuals who earn over $150,000.
Okay.
And if you just take the base pay on an iPhone of $150,000 multiplied by 1,771, the amount of salary that represents, the base salary of $150,000, is over $265 million. And I was curious, given all the pressures with the McCleary decision and uncertainties around state funding, what you think about the possibility of capping executive increases in the event that tuition continues to increase.
Okay, let me put, again, I think that part of the issue is we have these really large numbers, and it's very hard to put in perspective without looking at the size of the organization. You said we had slightly under 1,800 people who made over 150,000. We employ over 51,000 people. So it's a small part. But what's most important about that is that, in fact, when you look at those salaries, 75% of the cost of those salaries don't come from GOF or state funds. Most of those people, in fact, aren't administrators. They are doctors in our hospitals. They are coaches who get money from the athletic department. So it's largely, like I say, 75% of the funds that go to those approximately 18,000 people, or another way of looking at it, only a quarter of that money is actually state dollars. So that needs to put into perspective. This is a huge organization. It is essential that we are able to attract top people in things like, tech, which is in terms of the technology, in terms of our hospitals, in terms of our central administration. And we have to be able to compete in the marketplace because we need, if we don't hire excellent people, you suffer a lot more than that amount of money. So thank you. Okay, well, let me at least do a couple of questions. I got like 3 questions from the University of Washington, Tacoma, and they were all about various different issues about, having more activities there, about whether we would follow or continue to honor the legacy of Chancellor Friedman in terms of the commitment to being an urban serving organization. First of all, I want to say that I am deeply committed to all 3 campuses. They are all University of Washington. We expect University of Washington quality in all 3 of them, and the students at all 3 are absolutely terrific, as is the faculty. I spent quite a bit of time at the University of Washington at Tacoma right after Chancellor Friedman died. Some of you know she was a friend of mine, and so I was also deeply moved and affected by it. And on a very personal level, it's important for me that the legacy, that the commitment continue. We've just hired who I think will be an excellent chancellor, Mark Pagano. He was at the top of the list for faculty, staff, students, and for the community, which is really important because the community has really rallied around University of Washington at Tacoma. It's really been lovely to see. They have seen firsthand what that university has done for that community. Every once in a while, I wish that here in Seattle we were able to send people back in time and, It's a Wonderful Life, and see what this community would be like if it weren't for the University of Washington here. Because sometimes we've grown, we haven't seen it develop. We're not as aware of the impact as people are in Tacoma. I think we're very, very lucky that Chancellor Pagano is going to be able to start spring quarter, so you'll be seeing him very soon. I can tell you that during the interviews, he expressed a very deep commitment to the values of being an urban serving university. If not, we wouldn't have hired him. He has lots of ideas about how to make the campus more vibrant, and so he will get a lot of support from both myself and from Jerry Baldesty. And I urge you to engage in conversations with him as he comes in and looks over campus. But he will get a lot of support from us because we believe deeply in the mission of the University of Washington at Tacoma. I'll go ahead and take one more question and from here, and then we can actually have cookies. And, you know, just so that can't be accused of not taking the tough ones, this was a question about the salary of the football coach and what we should do about that. So what I want to say is, again, you know, we do work in a peer environment. And yes, the size of the football coach's salary is very high. But it's also important to remember that except for the cost of Title IX scholarships, and those are the scholarships that go to our female students in the non-money sports, because our female students are all in the non-money sports, the rest of the ICA budget does not contain any tuition or state funds. And quite frankly, that's incredibly unusual. Funds for the coach's salary come from ticket sales, from TV contracts, and from boosters. I wish that if I gave a class at Husky Stadium, people would fill it and pay $50 for it. But you know what? I mean, let's go out and change the world so that that happens, but that's not the world we're living in now. And actually, it is a very good thing to keep our football program strong. And that requires a top coach. And why it's important to keep our football program strong, if you don't happen to be people who are wild about football, and some aren't, it's because football revenues fund virtually all our other athletic teams. Last year, the University of Washington had 8 teams that were ranked in the top 20 in the country. They included crew, men's golf, volleyball, men and women's soccer, softball, and men's cross country. And 17 of our teams, including football, on average had average GPAs, the students in those sports had average GPAs over 3.0. 120 student athletes made the dean's list. Those are real pride points. Great students, great athletes, great student athletes. And that's what we're committed to. And if that takes having a terrific coach, so be it. I can take one more question, or we can have cookies. What kind of cookies? I hope they have chocolate chips. All right, thank you so much.